Hi, I am Ava, and my mother and sister didn't just erase me from their lives, they burned my existence to ashes with a single venomous command: disappear. But I held their betrayal in my hands, a smoldering truth I'd wield to unravel their perfect facade in a public reckoning that left them exposed. Brace yourself for a saga of deceit, defiance, and a daughter's fight to reclaim her name. I stood in my mother's living room that Friday morning in Asheville, holding a warm cup of coffee in both hands. The air inside the house was thick with humidity and silence. I'd stopped by just to check in, like I always did at the end of my work week, but something about the way the room looked made me stop cold. It took a second to register what was wrong. At first glance, everything was in place. The floral drapes, the heirloom rocking chair, the sideboard with old knickknacks from flea markets she never remembered going to. But the walls, something about the walls. My eyes scanned the room again. The photos, every family photo had been changed. Some were newer prints, freshly framed. Others were clearly altered. Images where my face had been carefully cropped out, digitally blurred or replaced entirely. A graduation picture with only Lila and Nora smiling under the oak tree, the beach trip from 4 summers ago. My arms were still around their shoulders, but the body had been trimmed clean out. Just space. I stepped closer to the large Yosemite photo above the fireplace. That trip was the only real vacation we took together in the past 15 years. I remembered holding the camera, asking a stranger to take the photo. It stood between them. Now, a strange gap remained where my body had once been. My fingers grazed the edge of the frame. It was crooked, like someone had hung it in a rush. Down the hall, I heard the soft creak of a bedroom door, then the light footsteps I'd grown to recognize too well. Lila. She walked down the stairs with her phone in hand, wearing one of her branded athleisure sets, hair styled like she'd slept in rollers. Her eyes met mine for a split second, enough to register that she'd seen me, but she looked away just as quickly and walked right into the kitchen. "Good morning," I said, trying to keep my voice even. She didn't answer. "Not even a hello, Lila?" I pressed, my tone sharper. She ignored me, scrolling her phone. I could hear Nora in the kitchen clinking dishes. No one responded. I walked into the kitchen behind Lila. Nora was at the counter, stirring her sweet tea pitcher like she was preparing for a community picnic, instead of confronting the fact that her daughter had been erased from the walls of her home. "Did something happen to the photos?" I asked lightly. I noticed a few looked different. Nora didn't look up. "They looked cluttered," she said flatly. "Cluttered? Or just better without me?" I challenged, my voice steady but biting. Lila poured herself oat milk like nothing had been said. I looked around the table at the breakfast Nora had laid out. Biscuits, eggs, bacon. Not a single plate for me. I sat anyway. My appetite was long gone, but I needed something to anchor me. I folded my hands and tried to breathe through the pressure building in my chest. They weren't even pretending anymore, so I said, breaking the silence again, "If you want, I can take a look at the furnace this week. It sounded like it was rattling last time I—" "Why don't you just disappear?" Lila snapped. The words hit the room like a bottle shattering on tile. She didn't even look up from her phone when she said it. Her voice was sharp. I blinked. Nora didn't scold her, didn't flinch. She set down her fork carefully, looked me square in the eye. "Maybe we'd all be better off if you did." I heard that sentence more clearly than any sound I'd ever known, not because she yelled. She didn't need to. She meant it. "You really mean that, Mom?" I asked, my voice low, daring her to repeat it. She just stared, cold as stone. My hands were steady when I placed my coffee mug down. I looked at both of them. The woman who raised me and the woman who always made sure I knew I was second tier. "Okay," I said. That was it. No screaming, no tears. I stood and walked out of the kitchen, climbed the stairs, each step echoing like a countdown. In my childhood bedroom, nothing had changed. The green floral wallpaper, the squeaky dresser, even the lamp I brought from college. It was all still there, untouched. I pulled my old weekender bag from the closet and packed just enough. 2 outfits, toothbrush, phone charger. I wasn't sure where I was going, just that it wouldn't be here. Downstairs, I paused at the foot of the stairs. Lila stood at the top now, arms folded across her chest, watching. Nora leaned in the doorway, her face unreadable. "So, you're leaving?" she said flatly. "I'm respecting what you said," I replied, my hand on the doorknob. Neither woman moved. No apologies, no reach for reconciliation, just silence. I stepped out into the warm Asheville morning. The sun was bright, but I felt cold. As I pulled the front door close behind me, I turned back once, just long enough to catch sight of the Yosemite photo through the window. Still crooked, still empty. Owen's guest room was quiet, the mattress beneath me firmer than mine back home, the air dry with the faint scent of cedar. Light filtered through the beige blinds, soft and indifferent. I reached over and grabbed my phone off the nightstand. No texts, no missed calls, not from Nora, not from Lila. I opened Instagram more out of habit than hope. The first story that loaded nearly knocked the breath out of me. Lila, smiling wide in a blue sequin dress, raising a glass while surrounded by people I didn't recognize, stood at the center of what looked like a graduation celebration. In the background, barely in frame, was Nora holding a tray of cupcakes, the kind she only makes for special occasions. I tapped the corner to check the timestamp. Last night, I stared at the screen, my thumb frozen over the next story. I hadn't even gotten a text. No call, no thinking of you, or sorry things got weird, nothing. And the kicker? It had been my graduation anniversary. They threw a party for her on my graduation anniversary. I sat up slowly, pulled my legs over the edge of the bed and whispered, "I didn't even get a text." It wasn't just forgetting. Forgetting is a missed card, a late voicemail. Later that morning, I wandered into the kitchen where Owen had left a note on the counter. "Meeting at 11 o'clock, help yourself to the poppy seed bagels." I smiled faintly. He was one of the few people who actually knew I liked them toasted with just a little butter. After eating in silence, I opened my laptop, but couldn't focus. Instead, I found myself slipping into a memory. 5 years back, Thanksgiving Eve, when Nora and Lila went on a spa getaway, just the two of them. "You don't mind watching the house, do you, baby?" Nora had said, handing me a small envelope of cash for cat food and pizza. I didn't mind. I'd even told myself, it's okay, they need the break, but that became the routine. Every winter, every holiday, I was the one left behind. Keeping the lights on, cleaning the fridge, making sure the plants didn't die, never once invited, just useful. That's all I'd ever been. Around noon, I met Owen at the Riverside Bistro on Maple Street. We grabbed our usual table by the window, and he waved down the server with a casual nod. "You look like you've been staring at a wall for hours," he said, sliding into the booth. I was. I told him about the party, the date, the absence. Owen didn't blink. He just said, "You've been a damn doormat, Ava. They treat you like a housekeeper, not family." I winced. "It's not like that." He leaned in. "Ava, come on. You think it's coincidence they keep doing this? They've shown you who you are to them over and over." "They're rewriting my life," I admitted, my voice cracking. "And you're letting them," he shot back, unflinching. I didn't have a comeback. I stirred my coffee and went quiet. After lunch, I walked back to Owen's house, needing air more than caffeine. On the way, my phone rang. It was Mrs. Whitaker, one of Nora's neighbors. She liked to call me to check in on things around the block. We chatted for a minute, then she mentioned in passing, "Nora said she and Lila are doing their little family trip again, just the two of them this year. Sounds lovely." I stopped walking. "Just the two of them, that's what she said." I murmured something polite and hung up. That word just cracked something I didn't know was still whole. It wasn't forgetfulness. It wasn't miscommunication. It was exclusion. Back at the house, I sank into the old leather chair in the corner of Owen's den and pulled out my phone. I scrolled through photos I'd saved over the years. Group shots, vacations, events. In almost all of them, I wasn't there. Because I'd been the one holding the camera. I always told myself I didn't need to be in the picture, that it wasn't about me. Maybe they never saw me as part of the picture. Maybe I never really was. So I dressed in something clean, pulled my hair back, and drove to the county records office. No calls, no texts, just instinct. The building sat quiet behind the city square, a low brick structure that smelled faintly of copy toner and old wood. Inside, the clerk, an older woman with gray curls and sharp glasses, smiled when she saw me. "Ava, right? Your dad used to come in here with cookies for the staff, said it kept us on his good side." I smiled back weakly. "I'm looking for his will. I think I need to see the last version he filed." She didn't ask why, just nodded, typed something into her computer, then disappeared behind a set of shelves that groaned when touched. A few minutes later she returned, a yellowing folder in her hand. She laid it flat on the counter and opened it carefully. There it was, his signature. My name, clear as day. Primary beneficiary, Ava L. Bennett. I exhaled slowly. But she didn't stop flipping pages. "Wait," she said. "Here's something more recent." Another page, another signature, same handwriting, different content. "Amendment filed 4 years ago," she explained, her tone shifting. Lila's name had been added. Mine had been replaced. She looked at me gently. "It's all legal, filed and notarized. 4 years ago." That was the same time Nora mentioned needing updated medical documents. I remember because she insisted I didn't need to come by to sign anything. My throat went dry. I left the office quietly, gripping a copy of both versions like they might morph in my hands if I blinked. Back in the car, I didn't cry. I just sat still for a long minute, then started the engine. The hospital records department was 25 minutes away. I didn't plan on going, but some part of me did, the part that still wanted to be wrong. Inside, a younger man at the desk tapped his keyboard while I stood there clutching my ID. "I'm trying to check if I'm still listed as an emergency contact on my mother's file," I said. He glanced at the screen, then tilted his head. "Name? Ava Bennett, her daughter, Nora Bennett." Click, pause, click. "I'm sorry, you're not listed." I blinked. "That's not right. I used to be. I've been on that list since I was in graduate school." He turned the monitor slightly, pointed to the entry. "The plan was updated 8 months ago. Only names listed now are Nora and Lila Bennett." The words didn't hit me all at once. They sank slowly. "You were removed," he added softly. I nodded slowly, and then without planning to, I said it out loud. "But I'm her daughter." He looked down, uncomfortable. I left again. No tears. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was something colder. By the time I pulled into Nora's driveway, the sun had shifted just enough to cast long shadows over the lawn. I didn't call. I didn't knock. She opened the door before I could ring the bell, as if she was expecting me. Or maybe she saw me pull up. "Ava," she said evenly. I held out the insurance printout. My hand didn't even shake. "Did you forget to tell me I don't exist anymore?" She stared at the paper. "You're over 40, she said after a moment. "Why would you still be on anything?" "Because I'm your daughter," I snapped, my voice rising. "Not anymore," she replied, her eyes unyielding. I let the silence stretch. I let her hear it. "You're right," I said softly. "I shouldn't be." I walked back down the porch steps with the same posture I'd held all morning, straight, steady, resolved. But as I passed the window on my left, I paused. There on the hallway wall, right behind the glass, was the Yosemite photo again. Only now it was tighter, cropped in, not a trace of me. I stood there for another beat, then turned away. I wasn't forgotten. I was deleted. If they could delete me from the documents, what else had they rewritten behind my back? That question followed me like a shadow as I sat in the quiet of Owen's guest room, fingers curled around a lukewarm mug of tea I hadn't touched. My phone buzzed with a notification. My cousin Clara, always too curious for her own good, had forwarded me a video. It was a local TV clip, a community spotlight. Lila and Nora, seated side by side, both in pastel linen and plastic grins. The banner at the bottom read, "Asheville Elegance, Mother-Daughter Duo Revitalize Family Property." I didn't recognize the house at first. The camera panned slowly. whitewashed porch railings, magnolia wreaths, a restored tin roof. Then came the punch in the gut. It was Grandma Beatrice's house, the one that had supposedly gone into probate, the one Nora once cried over, claiming the contractors had gutted the wiring and it would cost a fortune to fix. I had wired her $38,000 0 cents from my savings, no questions asked. And now, Nora said in the soft, polished voice she used for public sympathy, we just wanted to honor what came before. Family roots are everything. I turned the volume down. My ears were ringing. They used my money to build their image. Later that day, I drove past the boutique. I didn't intend to stop, but my foot slowed at the corner. The parking lot was half full. The sign outside read, Bloom and Tradition Curated Southern Grace. I parked, walked in. The smell hit me first. Lavender and old wood. Inside, everything gleamed. Reclaimed beams, polished brass fixtures, soft instrumental jazz humming through speakers. And there, hanging in a glass frame near the register, was Grandma's quilt. Creamy floral patches stitched by hand, the edges worn from time and love. I had stored it in Nora's cedar chest for safekeeping when the house was being gutted. Now, a plaque below it read, Maternal Heirloom, circa 1950 from the Lila Bennett collection. My heart didn't thud, it just dropped. A woman browsing a display table turned to Lila and smiled. This whole place just feels like a family hug. You must have come from a long line of women who knew beauty. Lila, without missing a beat, smiled. It's in my blood. My blood paid for it, I said, loud enough for her to hear. She froze, her smile faltering, but said nothing. I kept walking, slipping quietly past a half-open door marked staff only. Inside the back room was dimmer, cooler. The scent of cedar lingered faintly. And there it was, a mannequin centered under a skylight, draped in ivory lace. My dress. The dress my stepfather commissioned before he passed. A custom design, handmade silk. A note once tied to the hanger read, No one else touches this but Ava. Now, a new tag dangled from the neckline, curated by Leela. Exclusive piece. My throat tightened. I touched the hem. Still soft. Still mine. It wasn't just a dress. It was a promise. She didn't just take the house. She took the parts of me I didn't even realize I still had. I left quickly. No scene, no confrontation. The door chimed behind me, and by the time I reached my car, my legs felt like glass, but my hands steady. That evening at Owen's place, I didn't speak much. I just sat at the dining table with a legal pad and pen. I began listing dates, transfers, screenshots of emails, photo timestamps, receipts from the renovation. My hands moved methodically. I wasn't going to cry. I was building something. They wanted a legacy. I'd show them who poured the foundation, who patched the roof, who paid the damn bills. Because legacies aren't just inherited, they are claimed, and I was done asking for permission. The street was dim, quiet. Spanish moss hung from the oaks like tired curtains as I eased my car to a stop 2 houses down from Nora's porch. I hadn't meant to stop, only to drop off an old photo album she'd loaned me last Thanksgiving. But something about the soft clink of glass and the gentle hum of voices pulled me back into the driver's seat. Their porch light was on. 2 wine glasses, 2 silhouettes, Nora and Lila side by side in the swing, laughing. I left the engine running, cracked the window. I hadn't noticed until then that my phone, left on the passenger seat, still open to the voice memo app, had resumed recording. It captured what I couldn't bear to keep in my memory alone, Nora's voice, that familiar, syrupy twang. She's always been so sensitive. Honestly, I think she still believes she matters to us, Lila snorted. It's easier when she's not around. She just brings weight. She drags the mood down. They didn't see me. They didn't know I was close enough to hear the truth. I didn't step out. I didn't return the album. I didn't breathe until I turned the corner out of that neighborhood for what I thought might be the last time. Back at Owen's apartment, the TV flickered with some late-night detective show. He was humming in the kitchen, steeping ginger tea. I sat with my phone in hand, the screen glowing with unread messages. One caught my eye. A group thread with Nora and Lila that I usually muted. It was a misfire. A message meant for someone else, sent to me. Nora, just let her drift. That girl always needed more than she gave. I stared at it for 10 minutes, unmoving. My thumb hovered above the reply button, but I didn't type. I couldn't. Not yet. Owen walked in and paused when he saw my face. "Hey," he said softly, setting the mug down. "What is it?" I showed him the screen. He cursed under his breath, then knelt beside the couch. "Ava, this is not okay. You can't keep letting them treat you like you're disposable." I shook my head. "No," I said clearer now. "It means I've been playing a silent part in my own erasure. I didn't cry." I got up, walked to my bag, pulled out the notebook I'd started after seeing my dress in that boutique. I replayed the audio from the car, trimmed out the silence, kept the sting. Nora, she still believes she matters. Lila, she brings weight. I saved the file. I pulled up my cloud drive, opened the folder labeled Renovation Docs, and renamed it If They Ever Try to Erase Me Again. Inside, I uploaded the audio, the renovation invoices, emails confirming the wire transfers, screenshots of texts from Nora asking for help, photos I'd taken when the house was still half fallen and moldy, when I believed I was saving a legacy we all cared about. They called it sensitive. I called it proof. Later that night, Owen asked if I needed anything before bed. I told him I was fine, just wanted to pick up some cold medicine. His throat had been scratchy and the weather was shifting. As I pulled into the pharmacy parking lot, I saw a young woman sitting on the curb near the entrance. She looked barely 19. Her mascara was streaked, her arms folded tight against herself. A woman, her mother, I guessed, was pacing in front of her, throwing up her hands and saying things I didn't need to hear to understand. "You always ruin these nights. I should have left you at home." The girl didn't say a word, just stared at the pavement, taking it all in. I didn't get out of the car. I didn't interfere, but I watched. And I saw myself all those years taking it, biting my tongue, believing if I stayed quiet, it would hurt less, that if I just waited long enough, someone would see what I gave. But silence doesn't protect you. It only teaches them how deep the knife can go. If I let them do this to me again, I'm showing her that it's okay to stay small, that love means swallowing yourself whole. And I won't be part of that lie anymore. But the moment I stepped into Nora's diner, the air didn't feel nostalgic. It felt like walking into a play where everyone knew their part, and I was the extra who wandered in off script. The bell jingled like it always had. The place still smelled like fried catfish and lemon pie. One of the old servers, Marla, lit up when she saw me. "Ava!" "Oh, honey," and then she stopped. Lila emerged from the kitchen like she owned the air. She was wearing one of the aprons I'd ordered during the diner's reopening 6 years ago. The green ones with stitched names on the top corner. I didn't even need to squint to see mine. Faded, but still there. Lila laughed as she spotted me. "Oh, I thought she wasn't allowed here anymore." The whole diner went quiet. Forks paused halfway to mouths. Then Nora stepped out. She didn't even look surprised, just annoyed. "Ava, please, we're busy." "Busy erasing me," I shot back, my voice cutting through the silence. She flinched but said nothing, her lips tight. I didn't say anything more, just nodded and left. Owen found me an hour later, sitting on a bench by the little square across from the courthouse, the same spot where I used to wait for Nora when I was 14 after her lunch shifts. She wore my apron, I said, my name still stitched into the seam. Owen sat beside me, passed me a hot drink without a word. Then he said quietly, "So do something about it." That night, I opened a shared email account Nora and I once used during the diner's expansion. It had been years since I'd logged in, but my name was still tied to it. Buried in old threads was a conversation that started out mundane. Supply vendors, lighting invoices. Then I found it. An exchange between Nora and someone named Michael_funding. The thread discussed a silent investment arrangement for branding updates. A scanned permit form followed under Lila's name. But the startup cash, the routing number, it matched the personal business loan I'd co-signed with Nora when the bank wouldn't back her. I read it twice, then again. They launched her brand using my credit, my loan, my signature. I forwarded everything to myself and titled the folder Proof, not just hurt, but theft. I wasn't ready for a lawsuit, not yet, but I had a friend on the community board's legal committee who owed me a favor. I wrote her, requesting a quiet inquiry. I have documentation, and hit send. The next morning, I woke to a community group notification. Lila had posted a beaming photo in front of the boutique, caption, "Excited to expand the Nora & Company brand, thanks to our family legacy." I didn't even hesitate. I reposted it with a single line, "Let's define legacy, shall we?" It wasn't explosive, but it lit something. The comments rolled in. Neighbors tagging others, screenshots spreading. Someone asked, "Wasn't this place funded by that nurse daughter? I remember seeing her at the grand opening." I stayed quiet. Let the questions do the work. Because the moment I pushed back, I didn't hear silence. I heard the rumble of a storm. The storm didn't wait long. By Thursday afternoon, I'd gotten the email. Special community board session, urgent financial review. I didn't need to ask why. A neighbor had tipped me off the night before, forwarding a photo of the posted agenda. At the top, heritage brand expansion, use of community grant funds. Right beneath it, in smaller print, presented by Nora Gale and Lila Norin. I arrived early, but not first. The community hall buzzed with low conversation. Folding chairs formed 3 uneven rows facing a long table stacked with coffee dispensers, board pamphlets, and half-filled forms. Lila stood near the table, checking her lipstick in her phone camera. Nora was already seated, papers organized, mouth pressed thin. They didn't see me at first, but when my name was brought up mid-discussion, Nora leaning forward with that saccharine drawl of hers, "Ava hasn't lived here for years. She's not really involved." That's when I stood. I opened the manila folder I'd brought, slowly, deliberately. This says otherwise. I laid out the renovation invoices from 5 years ago, signed by me, paid by me. I showed the board the emails between me, the contractor, and the property committee. I pointed to the board grant guidelines printed in my hand, circled in red. The grants must reflect contributions from long-standing residents with documented volunteer service. Lila crossed her arms. Nora tilted her head, but the murmurs in the room were shifting, eyebrows raised, phones pulled out. One of the board members asked, "Can you verify your name on these transactions?" I nodded. "And one more thing." I tapped my phone. The speaker came on low at first, then louder. Nora's voice. She's always so sensitive. I think she believes she still matters. Then Lila, it's easier when she's gone. She brings nothing but weight. Gasps rippled across the room. "This is out of context," Lila said quickly, stepping forward. "Out of context? Then explain this," I demanded, holding up the loan papers. No shouting followed, no chaos, just a thick, suffocating pause where reputation curdled and faces hardened. When the board called for a short recess, I quietly stepped outside. Owen met me in the parking lot with a hand on my back, saying nothing. We drove back to his place. The sun had dipped low by then, turning the trees amber. I asked him to give me a moment alone in the garage. I sat on a folding chair beside the shelf of old boxes. My name, scrawled in faded Sharpie, stood out on one. I opened it. Inside, my childhood trophy from the regional spelling bee, my stepdad's old tool belt, and a smaller shoebox marked in his handwriting. "Ava's memories do not toss." I held it in my lap. For a moment, I didn't move. Then I cracked the lid open and found the photo album, pages thick with years, but his notes were still there. Ava's first cat, Ava and her muffin attempt, Ava's graduation. She nailed it. He'd kept it all. And suddenly the voices of Nora and Lila didn't hold power anymore. I wasn't gone. I hadn't vanished. They had tried to cut me out, but this was still mine. My memories, my proof, my voice. Later that night, a direct message landed in my inbox, a neighbor I barely knew. "I always wondered why you weren't at the block parties. Now I understand. I'm sorry. That was the shift. Not a roar, not applause, just quiet acknowledgement. And for me, that was enough for now. I sat down at Owen's dining table, laid out every document, every screenshot, every note. I filled out a formal complaint against Nora and Company, citing misuse of grant funds and improper business filings. But I didn't hit send, not yet. I slid everything into a fresh envelope and wrote on the front, if they push again, they would, but this time I was ready. They wanted to bury me with politeness, so I showed up in silence. The invitation wasn't sent to me directly. It came forwarded through Owen, passed along from a neighborhood listserv, a glossy event header, celebrating legacy, the women who built Nora and Company. I didn't RSVP. I didn't need to. People like me never really get invited. We're just supposed to take the hint and stay away. But that Friday evening, I pulled my hair back, slipped on a black dress I hadn't worn in 4 years, and walked into the old Westfield event hall like I had every right to be there. Because I did. The place was dressed up to look old-money Southern Magnolia centerpieces, vintage china, gilded frames of Lila's headshot propped on every corner. She stood at the podium with a flute of champagne, glowing like she'd swallowed the spotlight. Nora sat at the front table, smiling like a mother of the bride. I walked in as Lila was mid-taste. I wouldn't be the woman I am today without the strength and wisdom of those who came before me. She didn't pause when she saw me slip into a chair near the back. I let her finish. I let them sip and nod. I waited. And then, when the room settled back into murmurs and servers began placing plates, I stood. I didn't say my name. I didn't explain myself. I simply walked to the front, set a small Bluetooth speaker on the podium, and turned to face the crowd. "Before we raise another glass," I said, my voice steady, "I thought we might want to hear from one more strong woman in the family." I pressed play. The voicemail started as soft static. Then Nora's voice filled the room. "Ava's just baggage. She clings to the past because she has no future." It was followed by Lila's laugh. The silence that followed was louder than the voice itself. A woman across the room put her fork down. A sponsor from the community board lowered her champagne. Lila tried to speak. "This is out of context," but I raised a hand. "Calm. This business, this brand, this legacy dinner was built with my credit, my labor, my name. While they erased me from pictures, they signed me onto loans. While they cropped me out, they cashed me in. You stole my legacy," I declared, my voice echoing. A man near the back, someone from the board committee, whispered to the woman next to him. Another woman stood up, quietly walked to the door. I turned to Nora, then to Lila. "I'm not here for your approval," I said. "I'm here for the truth." And then I handed a sealed envelope, thick, cream-colored, labeled in black pen to the woman from the city's local development council. She was one of the donors listed on the event page. I said nothing as I passed it to her. She opened it slowly. Her brows furrowed as she flipped through tax filings, business records, and itemized financial transfers from my account. My name was on every page, not as a founder, but as a funder, a silent one. Until now, a flash went off. Someone had started filming. I didn't flinch. Nora sat motionless. Lila, hands trembling, knocked her champagne off the table. It shattered. She hissed, "You're ruining everything." "No," I said, "I'm just stopping the lie before it goes any further. You'll pay for this." She spat, her face flushed. "I already have," I retorted, unflinching. I walked to the back of the room. The voicemail was still playing on loop, faint but clear. She clings to the past because she has no future. And then someone clapped. Just one slow, solid clap. Then another. I wandered through the farmer's market with no real list, no task to complete. I passed honey jars and hand-lathed cutting boards, letting the scent of roasted pecans and fresh peaches wrap around me. Then I saw it. One small booth with folded cloth napkins arranged in wooden crates. One napkin was folded like a bronze leaf. It stopped me cold. My mother used to fold them that way for holidays, tucking them into glass tumblers. Still, I bought one. Not for nostalgia. Not for her. I bought it because it was beautiful and I wanted it on my table. When I got home, A white envelope was waiting in my mailbox. The board's letter had stared up at me like a verdict. They'd revoked the funding for Lila's boutique expansion. An investigation was underway. Witnesses had come forward. Apparently, the audio clip had made its rounds. I didn't press charges. I forwarded everything to the board. Voicemails, emails, invoices. But I didn't file a suit. Some people thought I should have. Even Owen asked why I wasn't taking them to court. I didn't want revenge, I told him. I wanted the truth to stick. That afternoon, I placed one last envelope on Nora's porch. I didn't ring the bell. I didn't hover. Inside, it was a copy of the original renovation invoice she'd once told me got lost in the shuffle, a printed transcript of the voicemail where she called me baggage, and a handwritten note on plain-lined paper. This is not for closure. It's for accountability. I didn't want her apology. I wanted her discomfort. I walked away without turning back. Back at home, I placed the bronze-leafed napkin on my kitchen table. My table, no one else's. It wasn't folded by Nora. It wasn't waiting for a family gathering where I was expected to smile while being erased. It was mine for no occasion. Owen stopped by later with coffee. We didn't talk much, just sat. "It's quiet," he said after a while, breaking the silence gently. I looked at the napkin. "That's how you know it's finally mine." "You took your life back," he said, his voice warm. "At a cost," I replied, my gaze distant. I thought of all the things I didn't get growing up, the birthdays I house-sat through, the photos I wasn't in, the holidays where I folded napkins and set places I was never meant to fill, and I thought of all the ways I showed up anyway. "You don't always get the family you hoped for," I murmured to myself later that night as I washed the single coffee mug from our visit. "But you get to become the one person who never erased you." I folded the napkin gently, placed it back in the drawer, and knew the scars of their betrayal would linger, a quiet reminder of the price I paid to reclaim my truth.